Hi and welcome to the next tutorial. Now in this tutorial we're going to do a little more with user forms, and as usual I'm starting from a blank worksheet, sorry, blank workbook, and I've already done file save as and saved it as quiz 5 as a macro enabled workbook. And so now as I go through I can just press Ctrl S to save it going through. So first thing we're going to do is go to the Alt F11 VBA view, and we're going to insert a module. Now the sub is going to be called quiz 5, and I'm going to start off by setting the question, and the question is going to be my question. Let's call it my Q. What is the capital of France? And I'm going to give 3 choices. I'm going to give choice A, which is Paris, and choice B, which is Lourdes, and choice C equals Nîmes. I believe the correct answer, which I'll call my correct, is A. Now I'm going to display this on a form. So because I'm going to display it on a form, I'll need to make these variables available outside of just this sub, this program. So I'm going to dimension each of them as public, my Q as a string, and I'll just copy all of that. So public my Q is string, public my A is string, public my B is string, public my C is string, and public my correct is string. And then they'll be available to the format server. Now I'm probably going to need to keep the score at some stage, so I'll declare that at the start as well, and I'll public my score as integer. So none of this should be a surprise to anybody who's done the other tutorials. So now we're going to put this onto a form. So I'm going to do insert a user form, and there's a user form. And we want some writing that gives us the question, so we'll put the writing here. And because it's not, the user's not been asked to type any text in, this is just called a label. So it's called label 1, and this is going to be my question. Okay, so on the user form object, there's the label 1 object, and down in the left hand side here we've got the label 1 properties, and you can see the property we're most interested in is the caption, because that's where we'll be setting the questions. Now we want to make it look a bit prettier, so we'll look at the font property and we'll change that to something much bigger, and we'll look at the forecolor property and we'll change that to something pretty, and so on. Now instead of having the user type the answer in, I'm just going to have them tick the right answer. So to do that we use option buttons. So here's an option button, and that's option button 1. Okay, a little bit taller than I possibly want it. And rather than do that again, I'm just going to copy it with Ctrl C and then paste it, and paste it again. Oops. and then there are 3 option buttons lined up. Now, because I did the copy and paste, each one of them has got the label option button 1, but only the top one is actually called option button 1. The second one is called, believe it or not, option button 2, and the third one is called option button 3. Now, that's going to have my choice A in, that's going to have my choice B in, and so on. So if I go to option button 1 and the properties, I see that the thing I'm interested in is called the caption, and this is going to be choice A. And then for option button 2, the caption is going to be choice B. And into option button 3, the program will put the caption that's the choice for C. Okay. So let's just go back to the module. So this is, put a little comment here. This is setting the first question. And then this is show the user form. So that's going to be user form 1.show. So let's do that. So we haven't actually put the question in yet, but that's what it's going to look like. And there's going to be choice A, choice B, choice C. Okay. And we'll just close that. Okay, so let's go back to the module again. Well, that's made up the question. So we want user form 1 dot, and I think the first one was a label. It's best to have these written down somewhere on a bit of paper so you know what they're called. And we wanted the caption to equal my question. And then we want user form 1 dot option button 1 dot caption to equal my A. And then user form 1, the option button 2 caption to equal my B, and then user form option button 3 caption to equal my C. Okay, so first of all we make up the question, then we stick it on a user form, and then we make it run. So what's capital France, Paris, Lourdes, or Nîmes? That's good. Now we'll do the right and wrong bit later. So first thing I'm going to do is to go and do the second question. So I'm going to take all of that and repeat it. So this is going to be the second question. Now, can you see that this bit here is being repeated exactly the same? So when I change the second question and I change that to England, and the options are now London, Sheffield, or the tune, that bit changes, but all of this is exactly the same. So to save typing it out every time, we can put that into a separate program and just call that program from within the main one. So I'm going to do a subcode put question in form. And a put question in form is going to be all of that bit. So I no longer need this bit in question 2. All I do is I make up the question and then I say put question in form. And the stuff that was here is down there in the other subroutine. Okay, so it'll do the same as it did before. And then I make up the second question and I do put question in form. And it saves me having all of that duplicated over and over and over again. So let's just run that. What's the capital of France? Paris. What's the capital of England? The tune. And then we'll go back to the code and have a look at that. Okay, so we make up the first question, we call that bit. We make up the second question, we call that bit. Let's do a third question. So didn't copy all of it there. What's the capital of, I don't know, my mind's got a complete blank. What's the capital of Ireland? London, Sheffield, Dublin. Okay, so first question, the correct answer is A. Second question, oh, I didn't correct that. Oh, it's A as well. Third question, the correct answer is C. So let's run that. What's the capital of France? Paris. What's the capital of England? London. What's the capital of Ireland? Dublin. So that's displaying the questions, all right. And all the checking and everything we're going to do on user form. So we'll put in a button. Okay. And behind the button, if I double click, oops. I double click, it gives me the code that goes underneath the button. So what we're going to do is we're going to see what the user has answered. So we'll write that on my little whiteboard called my answer. Now the answer is going to depend on the option buttons. So how are we going to get that? Well, we're going to say if user form 1 dot option button 1 dot value equals true, oops, then my answer is A. And then we're going to repeat that for the other two option buttons. So if user form 1 option button 2 is true, then the answer is B. And if option button 3 is true, the answer is C. Okay. Now, let's just message box that to see that we've got it right. And then to save us having to close it each one, once it's done that, we'll go on to the next question by hiding the user form and passing control back to the module to take us to the next question. So let's just try that. So F5. What is capital of France? Paris. And that's done A. What's capital of England with a tune? And that's done C. And what is the capital of Ireland? Dublin. And that's done C again. Now, did you notice that it was leaving the previous answer in after each one? So we'll get rid of that later. And let's go back to the user form and look at that. So that's now taken the option button values and given us A, B and C instead. And so we can now check if it's right or not in the normal way. So if my answer is my correct, okay, now I'm putting capitals on this just because I like the way it looks. If my answer equals my correct, then, and we'll not say message box my answer, we'll say message box correct. Else, message box wrong. And that's the end of the if statement. Now, you should really indent between if and the end if, and that stops you forgetting to put the end if in. Okay. So let's go back to the module and try that. So F5, what's capital of France? Paris, I think. Correct. What's capital of England? We'll get one wrong, Sheffield. And what's the capital of Ireland? Dublin. And that's correct. Okay. Now, we didn't like the fact that it was leaving the previous choice when we went to the next question. So what we'll do is, when we're finished with that, we'll say each one of these. So we'll say the option button 1 value goes back to false, and we'll do the same for option button 2 and option button 3. False just means it doesn't have the dot in it. True means it does have the dot in it. So that's setting all three of them back to have no click in them after each time we got the question right. So first of all, we read in the option buttons and set the answer to A, B, and C. Then we check the answer. And then we clear up the options. And then we're finished. So hide the form. And that takes us back to the module and it goes to the next question. So let's go back to the module and try that. And F5. What's capital of France? Paris. Correct. And now, because we cleared them out, there's nothing in this second question. And then Dublin. Okay. So, if we go back to the user form, we said that we wouldn't do the yes and no each time, we'll just do keeping the score. So instead of if my answer is correct, then message box correct, we'll just say if my answer equals correct, then my score goes up by 1. And we don't need the rest of that because we're not doing an if and so on. Okay, so we'll go back to the module and we'll set my score equal to 0 at the start, and at the very end we'll message box your score and we'll say what the score is. Now, I haven't been saving this as I go along, which is a bit silly, so I'm just going to do Control S now and save it. And if I do F5, what's capital of France? Paris. What's capital of England? The Toon. So that's 1 right, 1 wrong so far. What's capital of Ireland? Dublin. So I'm hoping this is now going to give me a score of 2. And your score is 2. Now, I thought the message box was a bit tame, so I'm going to put in another user form just for the end, and I'm going to put a text box in, a label in, and I'm going to make that nice and big. So and we're going to make it, say, a different color. I don't know. Bright red seems to be the one. Okay, so user form 2, label 1 is where we're going to put the final score. So if I go to this bit here, instead of doing message box, I'm going to do user form 2 dot label 1 dot caption equals your score is and my score. Okay, just run that. What's capital of France? Paris. What's capital of England? London. Oh, what's capital of Ireland? Dublin. Okay, so we put that into the user form. We didn't actually tell us to show it to us. So user form show. And let's run the quiz again. 5, Paris, London, Dublin. Your score is 3. Now, I know all of these quizzes are bland, so that you don't have to think about the quiz itself and just about the coding, but I hope now you've seen enough of this that you can do some more interesting things yourself, but using the techniques. And that's the end of this session. Thank you very much for listening.